Shut up and sit down.
Hey everybody, welcome to the KF Podcast, Castlevania, Season 4, Season Everything's wrap-up season, review, debate, wrap-up, whatever the hell you want to call it. If you found us here on YouTube, make sure to check us out at the KF Podcast on all social media, Instagram, TikTok. Please check us out on TikTok. I work hard on my TikToks, and no one watches them. And wherever you get your podcast catcher, check out the Pop Culture Week in Review or a wrestling show or whatever you want. But today it's just me and Justin. It's Saturday night. It's like midnight. I just got done working. Him and I have been wanting to talk Castlevania for a while, and we couldn't do it in front of those other two goofs because they didn't watch it, because they don't know what's good.
Yep.
But me and him watched it. You watched seasons 1 through 3 like on time when they were out, right?
As they came out. I've been watching it since it was released.
And then I got into it after you recommended. I went and watched it. Season 4 was already out, and then when I caught up to you, we started it together. And I mean, I blew through it in like 2 days.
Yeah, you ran through it really quick.
Really quick. So, this season when it started out, like I really felt like watching it all together. Seasons 1 and 2. Well, seasons 1 is really just 2. It's like all together. Because it's like the same story.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And season 1 only had 4 episodes.
Yeah, they wake up Alucard, they get busy. The fight with Dracula was always amazing. That was one of my favorites from the old show, old highlights.
Yeah.
Season 3 to me was very like we're just kind of setting something up.
Yep, absolutely. It was definitely a setup season.
Setup season, so you get to learn who like Saint Germain is, what his gripe is, what he's doing. Possibilities of bringing back Dracula, it's just a lot of like you had the wacky priest and all that shit, then you got to it. Season 4, I thought when it opens up, it's so intense.
Well, it's just a montage of, I can't even remember, like 6 weeks or something of them just going through the countryside, just constantly getting attacked. And when I say they, we're talking about Trevor and Sypha.
Yeah. Sypha.
They're traveling across the country, and Trevor and she talk about it later on. They're just, all they can do is react because they're just constantly getting attacked by things.
Right. And that's why I enjoyed it so much. The beginning and the end is like the bookmarking of it is like the beginning of this show is so like, how much more of this shit can they take? Like they've been doing this for so long, and like she starts coming away from like who she is. Like she's swearing and yelling at him.
That was like my favorite part of that one episode was when she just starts swearing and yelling at him for making her swear.
Right. So it was like so like man, how much more this can take? How long is this going to go on for? It was you had that sort of like. Dragging out, like, what are they going to do? What's their purpose? Then on the other side, you had Alucard, who was like so messed up from what the twins did to him.
Yeah.
He starts putting people's heads on pikes. He starts putting dead bodies, people who try to like invade him or like mess with him.
Well, he was copying what his father did.
Yeah. He was just like on a dark path that like maybe one day this guy's going to be the next Dracula. You know what I mean? Like, he was really dark.
Yeah.
And it's just good. Like, everyone was bad. Even you look at, like, Isaac, who's still, like, on that path of, like, I want to go maybe kill Hector, and I definitely want to kill that chick, and I want to just, like, destroy humanity.
Wanted to destroy humanity, yeah, because of what they did to him.
He's on that. And then you have, like, Hector's scenario, like, he's trying to, like, earn his keep. He's a prisoner. He's just trying to like, move along in his world that he's now a prisoner and has no freedom, and they really hate it. So I really like the way they took all the major characters and had them at one point in the very beginning of the season. Yep. You know what I mean? It was good. So then you go through it and like, everyone sort of flips by the end of the season. I really like the whole, they bring back Saint Germain, and he's kind of like a bad guy now.
Well,
he's not bad.
He's obsessed.
He's obsessed.
Yeah.
I really like the introduction of the Varney character and the other vampire that he had with him.
Mm-hmm.
I forget his name now. I should have wrote that down.
He was the Russian.
He had the wings. Like, he was a really cool vampire. Like,
yeah.
I like how he was like, I'm not just some henchman. Like, I know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm a badass. Like, screw you. Like, no one can beat me. He was a tough dude. I thought there was something up with the Varney character because he seemed kind of like up to no good and sneaky.
Well, yeah, and him. And you're gonna laugh at this because I'm about to do a wrestling reference.
Okay.
You know who Varney reminded me of?
Who?
Enzo.
Enzo Amore?
Yeah, he just. I think he was. It was the little guy and the big guy, right?
Yeah. Enzo and Cass.
Yeah, Enzo Cash. He reminded me of Enzo a little bit, and the Russian guy kind of reminded me of Cash a little bit, but he was more badass than I think Cash is.
Yeah.
But he was a mouthpiece. All he did was talk, but he couldn't back it up.
Yes. Yeah, especially when they got down to the fighting, he just couldn't back anything up.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to take anything on, and he had a different story. Obviously he ends up being Death. And I like the twist that they did where, you think he's Death. Is he Death, like the Grim Reaper Death? But really, Death was just a different kind of vampire, like an ancient vampire who, feeded on souls and life force and all that. So I thought that was cool, the way they, forget what you know about Death. This isn't like Death. This is just this version of him.
Yeah.
So he had a lot of games he was playing, which that was cool. So the evolution into it, Hector takes his reality in the beginning of the show, flips it around. He's a slave. Yeah. He's under control. He screws her over. He imprisons her. He really took advantage of his situation. I really like what they did with him. And then when Isaac attacks, the confrontation between the two of them, I thought was really good. You really thought Isaac was going there to kill him. I'm going to kill him. But he got there and was just kind of forgave him.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, I'm here to kill her. I'll leave your pet alone, And I really like the way
Isaac kind of grew too. As he was going through the countryside, just completely ravaging the countryside the whole way through, he kind of discovered all right, all this death and destruction I'm creating, why? What is going to be left at the end? He's I need to rebuild.
Yeah. I mean, the scene when he fights that wizard and that was the end of season 3. That was crazy.
Yeah.
So meeting the captain on the way there, the boat captain, and the wizard lady he met really just changed him altogether. So by the time he got there, he didn't have that for Hector anymore, but he was still gonna go kill what's her name?
Carmilla.
And then that fight scene with her was intense.
Oh my god, that might even be better than the fight scene with Dracula.
It's different because
much
it was
different.
The blood, the way they did the blood was running down the steps, and I like the way Hector helped him with that tunnel thing that he made, where he's I've been putting these spells in the wall, and
he basically confined her to one area and created a
straight shot. Yeah, a straight shot to her.
Straight shot right to where she was.
Yeah, and anybody that was outside of it couldn't get to him, and he just walked right to her. And I mean, she must have killed hundreds of those night creatures, which was crazy.
Yeah, well, and that's why it was, it was different than the Dracula fight. Dracula fight was basically 1-on-1, 2-on-1. Yeah. But this was a legion on one. Yeah. And she held her own.
She did. I mean, she held her own pretty well, and you knew she was eventually going to go down because it was too much. But man, she went down with a hell of a fight. That was a great thing. So I like the way they wrapped that all up. Isaac was going to do his thing now. Hector was going to do his bit. I was surprised and that was probably one of the only things I didn't like about the final, was that Lenore just killed herself.
I
Like,
was a little surprised.
yeah, I was surprised at that because I thought like she maybe realized like Hector's a good guy. Like he took care of me. Maybe I can have some kind of life with him that's not the other. She just really got to the point of like, there's no reason for me to be alive. I'm just gonna go kill myself.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, it's a little dark. But that was like her end fate, and he didn't even really try to stop her that much. He was like, I care about her, but he was like, ah, fuck it, go kill yourself. I'm good.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess the way she explained it to him, he like understood that, again it reminded me back to True Blood when Eric's maker decided he'd had enough and just went into the sun.
I think that's what her thing was. Like, she's doing that for so long. I feel almost she got like bored with her life. Like, this is what we do. These two do this. These two do that, and they went on their own. Now the other two, Striga and her chick, they lived.
Yeah.
So they could definitely be used in what we'll talk about later. The
Yep.
future of this universe, because they survived and they kind of went off to do their own thing with an army. So that there's
Did
opportunity.
they take the army with them?
They had an army marching with them. They marched
Okay.
left. The army she was bringing back, she was like, we go left, we go east, and they didn't go across to the castle, and they just marched the other way.
Okay.
So whether she gets rid of that army, they don't really know, because they were going to kind of like go live a quiet life, her like woman, but you never know. So those two were good. So then you come down to the end. I really like I really like the people that reached out to Alucard and that girl that reached out to him. The scene when he shows up at the village and saves them, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Was riding on that horse.
Yeah.
Makes that big dramatic
great
entrance.
scene.
That was a great scene. And then like you could tell there was something there with her because he kind of like almost like here's a reason to live, but he still didn't really trust her right away.
Yeah.
Because the last two people that tried to trust him seduced him, then tried to kill him, which was a crazy scene. I like the whole they moved to his castle, and all the stuff they were setting up with Saint Germain, and he was going to do his thing. You knew a big fight was coming the way they were building up, and he was getting everybody ready.
Yeah.
I really liked his story arc there. I liked how he was kind of like interacting with the kids and kind of learning maybe to be like his human side again a little bit,
Yeah.
So that was cool. The stuff with Varney and that other guy, the fight with Trevor and that guy was pretty good.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. The fight with the vampires in that home base that they were in, all that was pretty neat. And then the way it came together was awesome. I mean, the attack on the night creatures on the castle, and Alucard like taking them all on by himself.
Well, and the other thing, I don't know. I guess I don't know enough about the night creatures. Like, why are some of them just like
so big?
Yeah, normal size. And then you've got other ones that are like the size of like bigger than bigger than elephants. Like,
yeah, they don't really explain the whole when you're a forge master how that is. Maybe some are more evil, all the different powers, But I mean, that was an insane fight where they were like storming the castle, and I really didn't know. I got to the point where I was like, I don't know how this is gonna end. Like, I don't think they're gonna be with Alucard here because they're halfway across. They're like nowhere near him. And I'm like, how are they going to like get to the castle? He's going to die. Like, it didn't make any sense where they were. Then all of a sudden they go through that portal. And I'm like, oh, shit. Like, where's this going to lead? And that scene was great where he's getting kind of like beat and they come behind him with the fire and the chain. And then all of a sudden they're just boom back together. I popped for that scene.
That was good.
That scene was great. When they united all together like that and they were back. And then he turned and Alucard was like, great, fucking Trevor Belmont's here to save me. He's like, my day just got better.
Well, and there were some good funny moments when he was in his dark place when he was like comparing himself to Trevor, and he was like,
oh,
God
Christ,
damn it,
Trevor.
I'm turning into Trevor.
Yeah. So So that was neat. And then the fight that they did there, all the stuff was cool. I really liked the way they like took on the army. Then they kind of went into that one room, and there was like death generals that were there, like the leaders as vampire leaders, and they had to team up like one on one, and they took those guys out, and then they had to take that bigger dude out, which was nuts. That was really well done. All that was really cool. Yeah. And then you had the fight at the end with Death. Like I wasn't sure where they were going with that, and then when Belmont starts taking him on by himself, I'm like, oh, he's gonna die.
Yeah,
like,
he's gonna sacrifice himself for.
And I instantly got annoyed because I'm like, why does the good guy always have to sacrifice himself? I'm like, all right, like he's gonna die. I'm like, because the series is ending. I'm like, I guess he has to die, And then like when you find out that she's pregnant, I'm like, okay, whatever. Like I was really, really annoyed that they killed him. like like the way it was going, I'm like. I don't know. I just feel like the guy deserves a little more here. Like he's been through so much. I mean, he was getting the shit kicked out of him. He was so beat up, But then the move that he did against Death, and the way they tied everything together, that he found that one sword in that one spot, that knife.
Yeah.
And the way he linked it up. That he was like putting these weapons together. That handheld 4-knife thing that he had was so fucking cool. The way he was spinning that around, cutting heads off left and right, was amazing. That was such a good weapon. So when he does that, and I'm like, oh, he died. Okay, sucks. It was a cool scene, when he tells her he loves her finally, and then he was like, don't name the baby. What do you say? Don't name it Trevi or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. It was a combination of their two names.
Yeah. And then
Triffy,
or something like that. So then, like, after the whole fight and everything was over, I don't know, it left me with this bum feeling where I'm like, she's gonna go return to her people, and I'm like, all right, whatever. Like, this is I don't know. It just felt really down to me, like the ending. I'm like, I know this show's had a lot of down moments, but I'm like, I was kind of expecting a little bit of the end. Then when they like convinced her to stay, I thought, well, that's neat. Like this is a cool thing that she's going to stay there. They're going to build a school. She's going to teach. They're going to name the town Belmont. Like all that. All that was nice.
Belmont Estates or whatever it was.
And then as soon as the horse showed up, and I'm like, oh, what's this? Like, who's showing up now? And it was him. Like, it popped me so much. I was like, yes! I actually yelled out loud. I was like, my boy's okay. He's all right. He made it. He pulled through. I just felt like he really deserved it. And, like, I know we talked about this on the podcast the other night, and you were like, the whole show is so dark, and I think you then said, and then all of a sudden it's bunnies and sunshines and flowers,
Yeah. And that was kind of my initial reaction, but like the more I've had to go back on it, I do agree with you. Like he needed to get that happy ending. Like I said before we started recording, I think recently in shows I'm just so used to like having shit endings on shows.
There's always a shit ending. It's always a sacrifice and a
I don't
death.
know how to react to a good ending.
And then all of a sudden it was like, and the other thing that was good about it was Saint Germain's part. Like, he knew he was bad, and then at the very end when he realized, like, this was bad, I did all this for a selfish reason, he opens that portal and saves Belmont. And it's like he got redemption too. Everyone got some kind of redemption. Alucard doesn't go full-on dad, and he obviously meets that girl he's going to be with, Trevor can raise his son, daughter, or whatever, and teach them the Belmont ways. It was just kind of cool. Even like the Alucard Belmont moments at the end where they're like throwing little digs at each other. What were you going to name this town? And he was like, Treffy, or whatever.
Yeah.
So he's like, I hate you. And it was cool. And then, the surprise twist at the end with Dracula.
Yeah, which...
Why can't Dracula cut his fingernails if he's not going to be a bad guy? Those fucking fingernails are so long. Like, are you able to cut your nails when you're a vampire?
It kind of depends on what vampire lore you're talking about.
Yeah.
I've read enough of this that, so many different vampire stories. Some vampire stories, you are literally locked at the point of where you were when you turned.
Yeah.
Can't cut your hair, you can't do anything like that. Because your body is magically frozen at the point where you were when you were turned.
Yeah.
Other vampire lore, some of them are basically they don't age, but their body just regenerates everything.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah. So it was. I was okay with it. It was nice that his wife was back there just going to be good, and it gives you that little bit of like. So let's talk. The future of the show is they're going to do. Netflix announced they're going to do another show, and
Yep.
it's going to be like 200-300 years in the future from this, in like the 1700s, right?
Yes. So, we talked. I don't know if we talked about this on the podcast or off. But I was thinking that Trevor was a descendant of Simon,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not the case. Trevor is not the oldest Belmont in the lineage, but he's basically the start.
Yeah.
And then according to this, there's Christopher Belmont, and then Simon, and then Justy, Juste Belmont, and then Richter. And Richter is the main character of this spin-off series.
Okay.
So that would be Trevor is like his fourth great grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
Um
And this is why I'm glad that Dracula's back, because it is the world of Castlevania, and I think you're going to see a completely different Dracula if he's obviously still going to be around. His wife by then is going to have died of old age.
Probably.
You know what I mean? She's going to have passed normally, not brutally. So they can do so many things with Dracula at this point. Maybe he went and did other things. Maybe he went back to being evil. Maybe he's like good. There's a lot of different ways I think you could go with him in that universe. And the same is said with Alucard, because he's eternal as well.
Yeah.
So his mother's gone. This lady that he meets, maybe they have a kid together. Maybe she's going to be old and gone. His kid too.
But at the same time, maybe Dracula's wife doesn't just pass on. Maybe they discover him, another group discovers him, and they kill her to punish him.
There could be anything. I mean, there's so many different ways you could do it, that it's in a different time period. And like you said, you could bring back that Striga chick and her vampires. I don't want them to see. I don't want to see that Alucard's bad now. You don't even really have to use him as a main character in this either.
No.
He could have gone off and done his own thing, then maybe return for a couple cameos or whatever, or maybe he's with his father. There's a lot I think you could do there.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up.
A lot of different roads you could take there with how it is. I do think if this person is a descendant of Trevor and Sypha, I wouldn't mind him having some speaker magic powers as well too.
Yeah.
Maybe combine the two. You know what I mean? If it's he's able to do the whips and has the Morning Star whip and the swords and all that he can also generate some fireballs and some other stuff.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Maybe not as powerful, but maybe have some stuff like that he can do. I really hope they dig a little bit more into different Forge Masters as well too, and different things they can do. I want to see it keep going. It's a good universe.
Yeah, definitely. And the story is fantastic. The writing for the show is fantastic. The animation is great.
Yeah.
The
action's fantastic.
The action is great. So yeah, there's a lot that they can dig into, because beyond Richter in their in the Belmont clan, there's still several generations, and then at some point, which I don't know if they'll touch on this in the series, but it kind of surprises me that they're skipping over Simon and going straight to Richter. But it may be because at some point in the game lore, Simon ends up like lost in time and meets up with his ancestors later on.
Well, just because Richter's the star of the show doesn't mean that Simon might not be in it. That could be his father, and maybe Richter's very young.
If they do that, they'll be changing because Simon was Richter's grandfather.
Okay. Well, whatever. Like you said, lore. Him being stuck in time and things like that, you could do all kind of different stuff there. I'm sure there's ways they could sneak him in, Even if Richter is, let's say he's 20 or 18 or 20 in this, Simon could be his 60-year-old grandfather who's just old and helping him along, Yeah, I'm sure they'll try to eventually get Simon Belmont in there, I would imagine, at some point, But yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm glad it's not going away. I like the way everything wrapped up. I don't need to see more. I mean, even though I love Trevor Belmont, maybe there'll be some flashbacks or something like that if they ever want to do that,
Well, I'm assuming that if this new show does go beyond a single season, if it's well received, I'm assuming that they will, because they're introducing this new character Richter, they're going to have to go back and at least do some flashbacks or explain the family lineage of how they got to Richter.
Yeah. And some different kind of villains for them to encounter, whether it's even like werewolf clans or something different that calls for it, if it's not vampires.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was cool. I liked it. One of the better anime shows I've watched. One of the better shows I've watched on Netflix in a while, to be honest with you. I thought it was really well done.
Yep.
And there you go. Go check it out. I give it an A+. I was happy with that. I was happy with that ending. It was good. Well done.
I will agree. I'll give it an A+ as well.
Yep. And maybe we'll review some more of it once we hear some more details of it and see some stuff. We can talk about it down the road a little bit more. But that's it. Please like, share, subscribe, all that other shit. And thank you. Have a good night. See you later.
Later.